The woman in the mirror now feels like a stranger to me. My hands grip the edge of the sink, my fingertips frozen against the cold marble. It's past midnight. David is at another business meeting. 45 days and 9 hours have passed since he last came home that night, drenched in her perfume, leaving the left side of the bed empty. My trembling fingers touch my lips. They are still full, still warm, but no one kisses them. Ethan's gaze suddenly flashes through my mind, David's golf buddy. 68 years old, salt and pepper hair, a scar cutting across his face. Every glance from him sears into my skin like a brand. Yesterday, at the club, his hand accidentally brushed my wrist as he reached for my arm. Emma, he whispered my name like a curse. You look exhausted. You're not? I'm dying. I wanted to scream, but the words clenched between my teeth melted on my tongue. Betrayal. I walked down the stairs into the living room. My hands rummaged through David's coat pocket, perhaps a lipstick stain, a strand of hair, but what I found was worse. 2 tickets to Paris. 1 hotel room. A note with a name, Sophie. His assistant. 32. Red hair. She always smiled. When was the last time David smiled at me? My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. I'm coming over to fix the leak in your garden shed. David must have lied to me. He must have forgotten the garden even existed. But my feet moved on their own. My nightgown was thin. It was raining. Ethan stood at the door, his rain-soaked muscles visible through his drenched shirt. A Swiss Army knife in his hand. Emma, he said, his voice thick with rain. Can I go inside the shed? The scent of damp wood and rusted nails filled the air as Ethan crouched to check the pipes. His wet shirt clung to his back. I saw the scar. A deep trench from Afghanistan. I suddenly wanted to trace it with my fingers. Does it hurt? I almost asked. Instead. Why are you here, Ethan? He turned. His eyes gleamed like a predator lurking in the dark. You know why. My heartbeat pounded like a silver bell in my ears. The rain drummed on the roof. Ethan's hand brushed my cheek, his fingertips burning. I always knew David was a fool, he murmured, his breath hot against my skin. He left a masterpiece, Emma, forgotten in a dusty museum. I should have objected. I should have run. But my legs dissolved. My back hit a rusted shelf. Ethan's lips brushed my ear. You've forgotten what it feels like to be worshipped. Let me remind you. Just then, the shed door slammed open. Before this story goes any further, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. Your support through comments and likes means the world. David's voice rang from outside. Emma? Where are you? Lightning flashed in Ethan's eyes. He covered my mouth, pushing me back behind the shelves. Silence, he growled. David's footsteps drew closer. Ethan's heart pounded against my chest. His arm locked around my waist. I didn't resist. David's fist banged on the rusted shed door. Ethan's breath tangled in my hair. His fingers like a vice on my hips. Stay quiet. Every cell in me screamed, but my tongue was frozen. David's flashlight beamed through a crack, catching the wild glint in Ethan's eyes. Emma? What are you doing here at this hour? David's voice was sharp but unsteady. Was he thinking about his own lies? Or about me? Ethan's palm was damp with sweat. He let me go, but only to trail his fingers down my nape, tracing silent words into my skin. Adrenaline melted like ice in my veins. There was a leak, I murmured, blending my voice into the rhythm of the rain. I was checking it. I'm cold. I'll come inside soon. Silence. Then a muttered curse. Damn roof's leaking too. The repairman will come tomorrow. Footsteps retreated, sinking into the mud. Ethan's chest pressed against my back. His heartbeat was furious. And mine? It might have shattered. David's voice called again from a distance. I'm driving out. There's an urgent project with Sophie. Sophie. The name from the plane tickets to Paris melted on my tongue like burnt sugar. Ethan's lips ghosted over the sensitive spot on my neck. Something inside me exploded. I should go, I mumbled. But my body refused to move. Ethan's hands trailed from my shoulders to my hips, turning me to face him. You can't leave, he said, brushing wet hair from my forehead. Not yet. The rain pounded against the roof. He yanked off his soaked shirt and tossed it aside. The scar from Afghanistan ran like a river down his chest to his collarbone. My fingers traced it instinctively. Does it hurt? I couldn't ask. Because his lips crushed against mine. A scream. A protest. An apology. All swallowed by this kiss. His fingers tightened in the lace of my nightgown like he could rip it apart. David's suitcase flashed through my mind, him packing for Paris. Alone. Ethan's teeth scraped against my neck. And rage ignited inside me. I didn't resist. Take what you want. A voice whispered inside me. If he took from you, take everything. Ethan lifted me onto the rusted shelf. The metal was cold. But my skin burned. This, he murmured, lowering himself between my knees, might be the most beautiful revenge I've ever seen. He tossed the Swiss Army knife to the ground. He wouldn't use it. Or maybe he would. It didn't matter. Because it felt like he could carve my heart out with his bare hands. Outside, David's car engine roared to life. Ethan's lips brushed over the birthmark on my chest. Look, he whispered, his breath searing into my skin. A place David never noticed. The engine faded into the night. Ethan's hands were rough, but his touch was unbearably tender. I should have stopped this. But my body drank him in, like parched earth. He doesn't love me, I forced the words out as Ethan gripped my wrists. He smiled. The scar stretched. Love, he murmured, pressing against me hard enough to bruise. No. But I worship you, your cracks, your rage. He was perfect. Like a shattered statue. A raindrop slipped through the leaky roof, breaking against my shoulder. Ethan's fingers wandered higher. My mind fractured. David's laughter. Sophie's red hair. The musty scent of the shed. All blurred together. Stop, I whispered at last. My voice was as weak as a child's. Ethan froze. Something inside him shattered. But why? Why didn't David ever stop? He flew to Paris, and I am here, drenched, trembling, alive. I press my hand against Ethan's scar. Continue. At that moment, the only light bulb in the shed flickers, the rain becomes a storm in the darkness, his breath, my whimper, and the creaking shelves all turning into a hymn of betrayal. But who is betraying whom? Ethan's phone vibrates. A notification lights up, a photo of David and Sophie at Charles de Gaulle, exchanging tickets. Someone at the airport. A third suitcase beside them. Emma's mind freezes for a moment. Panic. Ethan leans down, hiding the marks on his neck. He whispers, told you he was an idiot. His hands still carry the imprint of my skin as he silently gathers his clothes. The light from his phone illuminates a ship already sunk, David and Sophie with that third suitcase. Turns out, it wasn't meant to be a pair after all. Ethan smiles, but this time it's twisted with bitterness. Look at him, he says, throwing his coat over his shoulder. The game he played with you isn't half as filthy as the one he played with me. The rain has stopped. Moonlight slips through the shed door, casting Ethan's scars in silver. Before leaving, he turns back. If you want to, you can burn it all. I know what he means. But I don't reply. The house is empty. David's note sits on the table. Staying at work for a few days. Sophie's laughter echoes in my head. I lean against the kitchen counter. My hands shake, but not from anger this time. From power. Like Ethan said, a shattered statue, but still standing. Upstairs, I pull my suitcase from the closet. Mine isn't the luxury kind David bought for me. Mine is patched up, inherited from my mother. I pack a few books, my passport, her journal. Flipping through the pages, I stop at her final words. One day, you will rise from the ashes, my girl. You will light your own fire at dawn. I return to the garden shed. Ethan's fallen Swiss Army knife still lies on the rusted floor. I pick it up, sharp against my palm. I close our joint account. Forging David's signature isn't hard, I wrote his birthday cards for him years ago. Irony. My phone rings. Ethan. I don't answer. At home, I stand before the mirror. The woman there is no longer a stranger. I cut my hair. The sound of scissors syncs with my heartbeat. As curls fall, the marks Ethan left on my neck are exposed. Not revenge, I whisper to the woman in the mirror. Freedom. David returns 2 days later. When he knocks, my suitcase waits in the hallway. His face is confused. His hands hold white roses, predictable. Emma, what's going on? I smile. Come in. He stands in the living room, shrugging off his coat, drenched in Sophie's perfume. Expecting forgiveness. David. He hesitates. What? What are you saying? I throw the Paris tickets in his face. Pull up the photo on my phone. The third suitcase. I almost feel sorry that you thought I was this stupid. His face drains of color. Listen, Emma, that suitcase wasn't. I cut him off. And I don't care anymore. I grab my suitcase. Leave. Ethan's knife from the shed presses into my palm. David shouts after me. Where are you going? Come back. Sunlight catches my freshly cut hair. From my own ashes. At the station, I buy a one-way ticket. Destination, unknown. A message from Ethan pops up. Did you burn it? I delete his number without replying. Open my mother's journal. Add my own line to the last page. I lit the fire, mother. And now I am burning. I stare out the train window as David's house shrinks on the horizon. I press the knife against the glass. Sunlight glints off the sharp blade. Free. The train's sunlight traces my sharp jawline in gold. The Swiss Army knife is cold in my pocket, packed into my palm. I hear footsteps in the aisle, but don't turn. Not until a voice begins reading my mother's words. I lit the fire, mother. And now I am burning. Slowly, I glance up. The man standing in the aisle wears a black train coat. A tattoo peeks from beneath his sleeve. The book in his hand, CA's Metamorphosis. His hair is tousled by the wind. In his eyes, something familiar glints. The light of the lost. Sorry, he says, his voice blending with the rumble of the wheels. That line felt like it was written for me. His fingertips brush the tattoo on his wrist. To burn, you must first gather your ashes. I don't smile. But I gesture to the seat beside me. He sits. His scent, salt, tobacco, oat leaves, washes away the mildew of the shed. I inhale. Like he has stolen my mother's words. And returned them to my soul. Elias, he says, not even glancing at the marks on my neck. No destination, he adds, watching the tracks stretch into infinity. Just moving forward. I close my mother's journal. My hand reaches for his tattooed wrist. The ink is faded. Did it hurt? I ask. He studies my short, wind-messed hair. Only the first stitch, he replies. The train surges into a tunnel. Darkness. My fingers linger on his ink. He doesn't ask. I don't explain. When we emerge, sunlight stitches our unfamiliar shoulders together. When our ashes scatter in the same wind. We watch the tracks stretch into forever. Maybe new beginnings are the words from a stranger's lips. Or the second spark thrown into the fire. Or the scream of silence itself. If you've made it this far, I know my story has touched you deeply. There's so much more to share, you won't want to miss what's next. Don't forget to follow, turn on notifications, and leave a comment about this story.